Your direct contravention of the Constitution by allowing your position to be used to improperly benefit your permanent companion shows indifference to our Constitution, which is unacceptable.
This is what Dina Pule's first stint as minister produced, a public rebuke by Parliament, 20 August 2013. Almost exactly a year prior, she'd accused the Sunday Times of a smear campaign when the newspaper exposed how she used taxpayer money to enrich and entertain her then romantic partner, Nkepile, who her department had awarded a 6 million rand contract linked to a 4-day ICT indaba in Cape Town. Her repeated denials did little to sway Parliament or then Public Protector Thuli Madonsela, who in her December 2013 report, Unsolicited Donation, found Pule's conduct to have been unlawful, declaring the appropriation of the 6 million rand improper enrichment. Madonsela ordered that the amounts owed by Nkepile be urgently calculated and recovered. By then, former President Jacob Zuma had already dismissed Dina Pule as Minister of Communications during a cabinet reshuffle in July 2013. More than a decade later, President Cyril Ramaphosa has returned Pule to cabinet. In his capacity as founding member of the ANC's National Deployment Committee, Mbhazima Shilowa explains the political calculations behind this baffling presidential decision.
I can understand why she's there, even though I don't agree with it. You know, you removed Sisi Tolashe, who is the leader in the Women's League. Now, the Women's League, while they would agree with that, they would then say, but it's important to ensure that there is representativity, not just of women, but of women who are active in the Women's League, in the executive. And I guess from a point of view of seniority of people who are not full-time in the Women's League, she would have been one of the people that, they would have said she should be brought in. The president could simply have said, no, not her, somebody else. But because it's political, you find you're looking at what constituencies do I need to lean on should there be other difficulties. And I think he's got his back against the wall at the moment. And
with
therefore,
Phala Phala.
Yeah, not just Phala Phala. I mean, generally, he's on his last leg in terms of the last term. So, you need to ensure that you have as little enemies as is possible.
Why? So that they don't recall you?
Of course.
Is that what he's trying to avoid?
I don't know if that's what he's trying to avoid. I think that he's trying to ensure that the Women's League, just as the Youth League would sometimes agitate for positions, or the veterans, he's just trying to ensure that, there are no constituencies that are agitating for people to be in the executive. Obviously, if you remember, the ANC Veterans League did reject her appointment. But, it's like they say today, tomorrow she's appointed. They might as well just have been howling at the moon.
But surely the Women's League has better quality leaders, surely.
Of course they do. But, it is not sometimes the best who get deployed.
But why?
It's because it is not about merit, capacity sometimes. It's about who hold what sway in which faction and or in the league. So if you look, you'll find that, of course, there are better people than a number of ministers who are there even now. Some of them have also been, and maybe that's a point that I wanted to make earlier. That is, I think the difficulty that the ANC faces is that it speaks from both ends of the mouth, in that we would all be complaining about Dina Pule. but Mantashe is there. There have also been things said about him by Zondo. I know he has been saying he's taking the issue on review, but the reality is that, sometimes it is not that you have been found guilty. It's more that you think, look, in the best interest of the movement, I should not be serving in this position. So I think it's a bit difficult to say anything about Dina Pule in terms of being inside. I'm not talking about us outside. When you can sit there and say, but what about Nomvula and the things that have been said about her, So that's a situation that it is not the best that get deployed. It is those who have the most powerful backing behind them that gets deployed politically. That's why I separate issues of deployment into the public service and in the cabinet or election into, positions of the PC, NEC, REC.
And this was supposed to be an era of renewal, so we were told. I mean, Jacob Zuma fired Dina Pule.
Yes.
And we have been led to believe that the renewal, ANC is renewing from the Jacob Zuma era.
So yes, we have been
baffling.
told. We have been told it shouldn't be baffling. We have been told that is the situation. But the reason why some people believed this renewal thing and President Ramaphosa is because we live in the era of heroes and villains, rather than in the era of it was the ANC that protected President Jacob Zuma during the Nkandla debacle. It was the same ANC when there were issues said about Pravin Gordhan, about the Guptas, about Jonas, that stood with the president. Now, to think that just a change of guard, but still with people like Gwede Mantashe, who was the general secretary then, and other people who may now just have left to gone to MKP, but at the time they were all leaders there. To think that a renewal would happen with all of those people is just a pipe dream. If you're going to do a renewal, even with those people there, you would have had to have a slightly different change of guard, including in the leadership, both whether it's the top 6 or 7, the NEC. You would have had to see new and younger people who are not tainted, emerging from regions, from branches, and all of those. So it's going to be difficult to have a renewal because in the ANC at the moment, and it's part of the way things get done, it is frowned upon for me to say, I would really want to be the Secretary General of the ANC. And these are my reasons why I think I could be. It gets frowned upon. It is said you must be nominated, which may be correct, but you get nominated by powerful factions. And therefore you have to own your being, the future, into those factions. And those factions then happens, they decide on the national leadership, they are the provincial leadership, they have been decided by the regional leadership, and so forth. So you're not going to have renewal unless you have a change of bringing leadership that has themselves have not been tainted.
So the underhandedness is basically encouraged.
It's not just encouraged, it's the way of life. So it is just a matter.
It's the system.
It's a matter of degrees. So I guess someone can ask. I mean, I know the president have not been found guilty on Phala Phala, but someone can ask, really, what's the difference between Dina Pule and the president? Of course, if you are on the side of the president, you say, no, but the president have not been found guilty. It was his own money and all of those issues, right?
Well, yeah.
Yes, I'm saying that's what you would say.
Was it his own money? But anyway,
Yes,
that's
I'm
debatable.
Yes, I'm saying, but that's what you would say. But you would do the same thing. You would say, okay, let's assume it was his own money. What about Mantashe and Bosasa? No, he has not been found guilty because it was just a commission, whatever. So that's what I mean, that is degrees. And unless you act decisively at all times, you cannot act decisively and carry the day when you do it on a part-time basis.
Is it just all about money at the end of the day?
I don't think it's
and
all
influence.
I don't think it's all about money. I think it's more about the movement have changed. Remember, and everybody says this. I'm saying even people who are tainted, they'll say to you, you know, during the days of struggle, you could really be arrested, you could be killed and all of that. So none of us went into the struggle for money and all of that. But the reality is, if you look at the way that we would prefer to live, as if we own businesses, but we're just being politicians, as if we're entrepreneurs when we're just politicians, it does bring into being that even if it is not for corrupt purposes, the only best way one can get employed is if you become a councillor, you become a member of the mayoral committee, of the cabinet in the province and nationally. So it becomes a scramble, which
But
is
it
why
is
you...
about money.
Well,
at the end of the day, it's about money.
It's about money, it's about
Positions are about
style
money.
of living.
Positions and style of living, that's all money.
They're all money, but, you know.
But so it is about money. I just want to understand, because for me, it really, it's not making sense. And
no, it would never make sense.
Because the ANC is paying a high price for things like this. You know what I mean? The public is shocked and shattered by this.
The public is shocked and shattered. But we must also remember that when I was thinking about that we've got heroes and villains, is that even in the media, you would find that the one person who would condemn, the other one who would say it was important. So for instance, if you talk about, but President Halima was there working with Jacob Zuma. President Ramaphosa was there working with President Jacob Zuma. Therefore, really, they can't themselves say they are not from that era. It is an ANC thing. They'll say no, but what would have happened if Ramaphosa spoke up? Zuma would have fired him, and therefore he would not have been there.
You need to reform from within. You know, those are the arguments that you will hear. Yet,
if you look at other parties that have died, whether it's the party of Kaunda in Zambia, which does not even have one seat today in Parliament.
Botswana is another example.
If you look at Botswana, if you look at the Indian Congress, it tells you that it is money, it's corruption, it's favoritism, bureaucratization of the party. All of that in the end leads to that. But there would always be people, even in the media, who would think, no, this is the best route that can be taken. So, yes, the people speak all the time, but I don't think political parties, and in this instance the ANC, even hears what the people are saying. Because if you look at what happened to them in 2016 in all the key metros, and again 5 years later, it does not seem that lessons have been learned. It just seems that, look, we know we need to do something, but we're so stuck in the mud, we're not sure how to get out.
Are they not sure how to get out, or do they not care? They'll just...
I think they do care. I think they do care because if you're talking about the importance of resources, if the less people you have in cabinet, the less people you have who are financial viable, the more battle you're going to have. I mean, people kill one another, not just in the ANC, just for a position of being a councillor. Now, so they do care that if only the pie could grow, you would have less fighting for these positions. But the less and less well you do, more and more competitions, including killings, does take place.
So just take us step by step how a decision, you've explained sort of the factors that
Yes.
lead to such a decision.
Yes.
But in this case, we heard Secretary General Mbalula
Yes.
saying, defending the decision and saying that Dina Pule has been rehabilitated,
Yes.
etc. So just take us through, it wasn't the president sitting on his own and thinking, chess game, let me move this one. And it was an ANC decision, was it?
So it's never in the NEC. It's not even the officials. The president may say to the Secretary General, look, we have this particular vacancy. Looking at the strength, the weaknesses of the cabinet, representation of this or that constituents, whether it's trade unions, communists, or whatever, what do you think? And in this sense, having taken out the leader of the Women's League, what do you think we should be able to do? So it would have been, it's his final decision.
Yes.
But the discussion would most likely have been between him and the Secretary General, but not necessarily. And they may have gone to the Women's League to say to the Women's League, look, because remember, you do need, the NEC decided we're going to ask her to step down. Even from the NEC and leader of the Women's League.
This is Tolashe we're talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, when you need to get that Women's League on board that decision, which decision they didn't take, was taken by the ANC. They were briefed, they supported it. But having supported it, they therefore expect that since our leader is now out, you will find someone from amongst ourselves. And sometimes the Women's League would have said, well, this is our next second leader. And if I take away the head that I'm talking to you here about now, I think it doesn't make sense, though, that we are concerned about her because she's now a minister. Yet we didn't say anything about her being a member of Parliament. She's not the only one who is there, who is a member of Parliament, removed from the cabinet. And then we are happy that they have been removed from the cabinet, but they remain in Parliament. So, but to come back to your question, so the process would not have been the president alone. It would have been at least the Secretary General and or speaking with the Women's League. But my point is, in the end, if she's fit to be a member of Parliament, she should be fit to do anything, because we have already been shown that ethics, integrity, morals doesn't matter.
why should the Minister of Social Development be from the Women's League?
I don't know. It was not always like that. So maybe it came like that. I mean, if you go back, Square would have been the Minister of Social Development. At least I'm presuming he wasn't from the Women's League.
No, he wasn't. Yeah.
And
But
then,
from Batabile,
and then
Zamini,
Geraldine
yeah.
would have been there. But it's clear from after Batabile, it had followed a particular. It shouldn't
Why?
be.
But why?
I don't know. It shouldn't be.
Because
If
now
you-
you're
if you-
going back to the Women's League to replace a Women's League candidate. Do you know what I mean?
I
So
think
we're
it's-
going to be stuck. And now
Yeah.
it seems like the Women's League doesn't actually have any credible leaders, because if we're stuck with Dina Pule, you know, if something happens to Dina Pule, what are we going to do? If we have to go to the Women's League pot.
Yes.
When South Africa has so many, if it must be a woman, South Africa has so many capable women.
We shouldn't be going there, but I think part of the problem that the president would have had to deal with is this. Does he do a wholesale cabinet reshuffle? In which case, then, you know, you've got... So if you're swapping one for one, you have to then say, we took out someone from the Women's League or from the Youth League, from the trade unions, from the Communist Party, whatever, to an extent that it had nothing to do with the party or all of those. We've got to try and find someone, at least that is that representative. Leave Ramaphosa for now.
Okay.
Go to the UK.
Okay.
We have a new prime minister. The composition of the cabinet reflects the factions that backed him.
Yes.
Reflects the fact that he would need to bring in from different factions of the party people that are there. And if he was to fire someone who represent, quote unquote, that faction, in all likelihood, to ensure that that faction feels represented, he's more likely to go the same route. It doesn't make sense. It's not constitutional, but this is politics. So I'm just saying it is not just in the ANC.
Yes.
You know, in Japan, if they were, even though they use merit and everything else, but if you were to make changes, they always look, yes, but do we have someone from this region or from that region? You know, so it won't be the Women's League. It won't be the Youth League.
It's a balancing of the forces within
Inside the
party.
party. Yes.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes. It is the people that went out to campaign for him. Business would have given him money. Business have got no capacity to rally branches, to rally regions, to rally provinces. It is people who, you know, go out there and stand off it. So if any leader is compromised, it's compromised in terms of the forces that were campaigning for them, not just the resources.
It's both.
Yes.
Let's agree it's both.
I agree it's both, but policy-wise, it's not both. And the money that the president would have received would not compromise him in terms of who he appoints. What compromises him in terms of who he appoints is the people who were supporting him, some of which were very dodgy characters. So if the dodgy characters are campaigning for you, if they are good enough to campaign for you, it is very difficult for you to later say you're good for campaigning, but you're really not good to be in my circles. So you are compromised not just by the money. The money is policy. That's politics. Sometimes we ascribe corruption to it. But sometimes it's not corruption. It's simply those reflect the balance of forces. There is tomorrow. If you don't support the people who brought you there, I mean, you would know the adage, don't kick the ladder because you are now up. If you don't support those kind of people, next time they're going to ditch you for someone else.
President Cyril Ramaphosa's position seems to be getting rather untenable.
Right.
I mean, there's Phala Phala, and there was, I think it was later, it was first a rumor and then it was confirmed that when Phala Phala first broke, the story first broke,
Yes.
he wanted to step down.
Yes.
And then he was clearly convinced
Yes.
to stay.
Yes.
Why does he continue to stay?
Okay. Two things. It's not a rumor. It has been confirmed.
Yes.
In fact, people like Mandashe,
they've confirmed
James
it.
Mutlatse, Franz Baleni have confirmed that when this thing came, he contemplated. His instincts were correct. That says, I know I'm not guilty, but with these findings, I don't want to put the party and the
country.
And the country and the presidency into disrepute. Now, the faction that was rejoicing, because it was more that if he steps down now, he's also not going to he's not going to be the president of the ANC. Others would have said, no, we don't want that faction to ascend, and we don't have anybody else who can fend off that faction. So therefore, we go to the president. We don't say to him, look, we want you because you are part of our faction. We say, but the president, you can't really plunge the country. You know, look at the economy, look at all of those. Things will be worse when you are not there. We will fight it out with you. Stick around. Then it becomes the position of one, first the broader faction, and secondly now the ANC. So it is the ANC now that says, look, we will elect you warts and all. As Julius Malema once said of Zuma, we want him with all his scandals. And now you can't, having elected him with all of his scandals, suddenly says, no, but this fellow must go because he's got scandals. But the president's instinct was correct. And the ANC should have allowed him to go and rather manage the whole internal issues of who is going to succeed him and then live with it.
The president is a smart man,
Yes.
number one. He's a wealthy man,
Yes.
number two.
Yes. So
why does he continue to stick around?
Because
he doesn't need all of this.
He doesn't need all of this thing. But when the leadership of the ANC and people that he agrees with, people he have worked with, show him, I'm not saying he's correct. I'm saying when they show him what for them catastrophic it would be for the ANC without him. You know, even now, there are people who think, no, in fact, the ANC achieved 40% because he was there. If he wasn't there, maybe it would have been 20%. And therefore, we need to stick with him because. Nothing says the issue may be about the positions we take on the economy, on jobs, and on morality, on service delivery, and so forth, which is what, in the end, people will care about. But I think, you know, political parties, not just the ANC, they also run polls, by the way, internal polls. They may have run internal polls and found that, look, Phala Phala is an issue for us, who are Checharach, but it's not an issue
for the voter.
for their voters and their members. And in fact, if not necessarily that I agree with it. I mean, I go a lot in Limpopo, and people, even then, were saying to me, what about this Phala Phala? And I was explaining. But most people would say, Kishalta Haim was so, Luna, focus on delivering basic services and so forth. Now, because some of those don't make the connection between, but it may be his money. Leave aside whether or not, it may be his money. But what about the law? What about the rules on how you report and all of that? And why was the theft not reported early in time and all? They're not interested in those questions. And for them, most of them just think, no, Habamat. It's the same way with JZ. I mean, you could explain the whole issue of the Guptas, and then people will say, when's they do Zoom? I mean, why bang am phone? I'm saying so you take those internal polls as well, and you say to them, you know what? Those people, sometimes it's not good for me to listen to my enemies and the media. They're not going to vote for us. So let me listen to those that are here. Zwelinzima takes a correct moral position. I may take a correct moral position. Some in the opposition that are taking the positions that seems good and moral would not take the same position if they were in the ANC. They would be backing Cyril Ramaphosa and all of those. So that's how we've got to look at it. And in the end, it's the party that he's trying to lead. And sometimes, you say for better or for worse. Everywhere in the world, unless you are a directly elected president, you do rely on your party to remain in power. It's easy to say, I don't need that position, I can walk away tomorrow, but you do need that particular position. Even when Tony Blair had one of the biggest majorities, how many times did he bring in Mendelssohn? Twice. He brought him, he was trade minister, something happened, he put him away, 2 years later brought him. Later, because he's part of a faction in the Labour Party, years later, he was brought in by Keir Starmer, made this and all of that. So the point I'm trying to make is that we must not have this South African exceptionalism to think that politics should work differently in our country, where there's no directly elected president and people follow democracy. The party reigns supreme.
Mbhazima Shilowa, thank you so much for giving
Thank you
us
very
your
much.
time. We really do appreciate it.
No, thanks for the opportunity.